Let's take a look at the Rane One MkII. This is the updated version of a very popular controller that has been out for 4 years now. I couldn't believe it was 4 years ago that they released it. I've got it here. In a minute, we're going to actually put them side by side so I can show you a comparison. And they're quite heavy, but as you can also see, they're pretty compact. You know, they're not like huge things. And a lot of controllers like this, a lot of motorized controllers, which is what this is. It's a motorized controller designed for people who like that vinyl feel, obviously for scratch DJs, open format DJs, or anyone who wants proper motorized jogs. They're quite big, right? This is not big, it's compact, it's small. The company that makes it in music has got form here. They used to make the Numark NS7 series, which were very popular for the same reason. They were well specified controllers for Serato, working with your laptop, that didn't take up all the room in the back of your car or in the DJ booth. In other words, they're only as big as they have to be, right? So the Rane One MkI was a very popular controller, and now they've come out with the Mark II. The Mark II is the same price as the Mark I was at launch, which in today's tariff and customs and post-COVID supply chain issue world in itself is something to be commended, right? It's no more expensive than the Rane 1 was when it was released back in 2021. It's also a testament to the Rane 1 that this one, apart from the quite obvious nice white color, which I imagine is going to appeal to a lot of mobile DJs who like that kind of clean white look for their wedding setups and so on. Apart from that, it looks pretty similar to the original. I mean, really does. And you need to look twice before you realize what's changed. Now, actually what's changed here is quite a lot. So if you're thinking, should I upgrade from the Rane 1? You need to know what's new in here. We're going to cover that. We're actually going to put the two units side by side and I'll talk you through all the differences there. And then once you know what's different about the Rane 2 against the Rane 1 MkII against the Rane 1, you're going to be in a better position to decide. If you're coming to this fresh and you just want a controller that is this size and that's got the stuff that the Rane 1 always had, it's a no-brainer. You won't be able to get the original anyway anytime soon. It's going to stop being available anywhere. And this one's the same price, right? So there's no debate. Just go get the Mark II. It adds a lot more without taking anything away. So that's an easy one. But if you're on the fence, especially if you own the original, let's talk through some of the changes. Now, our review of the original, I had a look at it before I recorded this video, is still utterly relevant. It covers everything, so I'm not going to go through anything like all the detail about this unit. We will produce a training tutorial and video manual for this, so keep an eye on the description underneath this video. That'll be coming towards the end of 2025, where I will talk you through everything and we'll give you a proper full tutorial on how to use it. So we're not going to do those things here. What I'm going to concentrate on here are the differences with the old one and then the big changes, which are stems and hardware effects. Before we do any of that though, let's just have a quick tour of the unit for the uninitiated. So these are compact but fully featured 2-channel controllers with motorized jog wheels, right? They scratch, they've got vinyl on top. This vinyl actually has a slip mat and a real piece of vinyl here that gives you that feel, right? That's what this is all about and what they've done so well for a long time, as I said. They have pads that control pretty much everything in Serato software. All the modes are down here. They also have a really decent additional set of pad controls that are brand new up here, which replace the touch strip controls. We'll look at that in a second against the Rane 1. They have the new hardware effects here, which are new. They have paddles, so they are that scratch open format style of controller where you can lock on or momentarily trigger your effects here. This unit here then has full metering as well, which you would expect. So there's a meter here for the channel you're listening to and also main master meters here. Around the back of the unit, it's got everything that the original had. I mean, there's no changes here. We will put them side by side to show you the top panel, but I won't compare the backs side by side. So let's go through the back. And this is, as I say, exactly what was on the original. So we have the IEC, in other words, kettle lead input with the on-off button just off camera there. I much prefer this to having the power brick kind of solution to this. So that's exactly as it was. 2 inputs for USB there. So you can have 2 laptops at the same time going. Actually worth pointing out that this now will work with Algorithm's DJ Pro and Virtual DJ out of the box, so you could have a backup system plugged in there, especially because Algorithm's DJ Pro works on iPad. So your iPad or phone could be your backup, always plugged in case you need it. Here's your outputs. We've got the main output and the booth output as balanced XLRs. No TRS balanced output there. They've gone for XLRs. And the unbalanced main output here as RCAs. Also RCAs, Deck 1 and Deck 2, which have a line and a phono input. So you can use this as an external mixer for straight turntables or whatever you want to plug in there, and use them as analog inputs. Also an auxiliary input, which shares its input with microphone 1. And you also have microphone 2. These are combi jacks for the microphones. So let's have a look at the front of the unit, and I'm just going to turn the whole thing around. I'm going to unplug everything here, turn the whole thing around to show you what's going on in the front. Again, this is exactly the same as the Rane One original unit, and I'm not going to show you that one. I put them side by side. So let's talk through it now. So here we have our headphones, 8¼ inch. We have our Q level here, headphones level, headphones split for mono split. Our Q mix, also the contour controls. Again, nothing's changed here. There's only one new control here I need to tell you about. Our contour for the crossfader and also for the decks, deck reverse buttons, hamster buttons also for the crossfader. Up here then is the new knob, which I'm sure is going to please a lot of people because there's now a hardware sampler level knob, so you don't have to mess around mapping or heading with your mouse into the software to adjust your overall level for the sampler. Two microphone inputs then, microphone 1 here and microphone 2 here. Actually it's microphone 2 that has the auxiliary, and so you can switch microphone 2 for an auxiliary input as you want. Low and high EQ and level knobs for those, exactly as on the previous one. Let's get the previous one up then. They've made some cosmetic changes to the Mark II in order to fit in the new bits, in order to fit in the hardware effects and the little screen that's necessary for them. We'll turn this on and have a look in a minute, but also to fit in the stems. And they've also made the decision to ditch the touch strip, which was used to quickly scroll through the track, and replace it with a secondary set of hot cue controls, or rather of performance pad controls, of which hot cues are one of them. And so up here at the top then, we have a secondary set of buttons that control our pads, or rather give us a second set of controls over the functions that the pads control, which is useful as we're going to have a little look at when we look at how the new stems controls work on the unit. So that's one big obvious difference in the top right hand corner. The screen here means that the bigger VU meters here have been rejigged, so you've now got the master meters a little bit higher on the Rane One Mark II, and the individual VU meters have just tucked in next to the EQ controls up here rather than having them in this section here. And they've put these horizontally, the main and booth controls, as opposed to having them vertically there. So in the effects area, they've squashed in everything to fit accordingly with this hardware software button that's new to switch between the hardware effects that are built in and to switch away from those into the Serato effects. Again, we'll take a look at them. Microphone 1 now has effects on it, so that's why this says Mic 1 effects on here. And there's a prominent tap control here, tap being when you tap the beat in, and this could be useful when you're using external sources, as we're going to talk about when we talk about these controls here, which replaces the tap control that used to be in the middle, this one here, because of the screen. Right, so a little bit of rejigging there, nothing massive. New buttons here for the effects for the channels, so they're not just filters now. And so you can switch between what you want. We'll have a look at that in a minute. This area unchanged, this area unchanged, although there's more functions on the Q buttons to help with the stems. We'll talk about that. You do have the effects depth knob here as well, which does make it a little bit more busy around here. If you like the really clean area for scratching or whatever, you've got to be aware there's a new knob plonked right in the middle there. Talking about the faders, these faders here were always playing second fiddle to the lovely Mag 4 crossfader here. Now they don't. Now these are really nice as well. They can all be adjusted for tension by taking off the top here, as opposed to on the Rane One Mark I, where it was only the crossfader that had that adjustment on it. So that's the mixer section on the top here. Let's move down because some of the buttons have been rejigged in this area, again, in order to fit in the stems. So here we have on the original slip and motor off and sensor and reverse. These have now moved. So the slip and motor off button has now moved down to here. This used to be the range and key lock button for the adjustment of pitch and tempo. The range and key lock button on the Rane One Mark II is now here, which didn't exist there at all. And the sensor and reverse button, which was here on the Rane One original, has now moved to a new button here. Are you staying with me? And what all that means is that these two buttons here have been freed up again for stems control. So now we have a acapella and instrumental button here for instant acapellas and instrumentals. And you can also have stems effects going on with these as well, which I'll show you in a minute when we talk through the stems functions. So a bit of rejigging to make all that lot fit there. Now down here, there's very little, if any, change that I can tell you about. The reason for that being that in order to get the extra features that have been added to the Serato software to help with stems control on this unit, it's just a case of double tapping or using shift in order to switch between the different modes, which I'll show you in a tick. So nothing new there, except they've got rid of slicer as a main function there and put stems on instead, which is a good move, seeing this is a stems focused controller and seeing that I've hardly ever seen anyone doing anything useful with slicer, personal opinion. And down here we've got 33 and 45, which weren't here, so you can hold down shift to change the speed of the platter, and so you've got the platter moving. Whatever you're comfortable with when it comes to scratching and manipulating your music. Of course, this is going to need to be switched in the software as well, which it can be. Otherwise, you could use it more as an effect, deliberately playing the record at the other speed. So one of the things that DJs liked, or some DJs liked, about the original Rane One was kind of like it was quite simple. And this kind of follows on from the NS7, the Numark units that came before it, in this kind of form factor. It's got what you need, but maybe not a lot else. And it's just worth bearing that in mind. If you don't think you're going to need some of these features, they are all crammed in on the Rane One MkII. It's still easy to use. You don't have to use everything on it, but you might just think it's getting a bit complicated. Just worth bearing in mind if you are a DJ that prefers simple over anything else, especially if you're looking to upgrade from the original. But that said, we do need to take a close look at the stems in particular, but we'll also touch on the new hardware effects here as well, so you can make an educated appraisal of whether it's something for you, because we are living in a world now where stems are, like it or not, a big part of DJing. So whether you're on that bandwagon or not, it's going to be, to me, the ultimate thing that decides whether you go for the new model, should you own the old one or not. Right, so let's take a look. On any Serato controller, when it comes to controlling stems, they've quite cleverly given you a way of taking one of the functions on the pads and switching it out so that it works on stems. So you have a stems button on this one, which is great. That's the one that replaces the sampler, as I was the slicer, as I was saying. However, it doesn't really matter because, as I say, on any controller for Serato, they've cleverly made it so you can say, you know what, I don't use insert another function here on the pads and switch it out. So that's what this mode is here. By pressing the stems button, I get exactly that. So I can have just the acapella going there. Acapella and melody. Acapella, melody and bass. The whole track. And obviously any combination thereof. And again, just like standard Serato on anything, these buttons here will give me a nice effect on each of the stems. So on the vocal, I can echo out the vocals. Echo out the instruments. Break the instruments. Or I can echo out the drums. But that's where it stops, but not here. We've only just got started on what this can do. So let's have a look at a couple of the extra stems functions that have been added to the pads. So the first one is the stems effects. If I double tap the stems button here, I get into the stems effects mode. So now these top four buttons still control the stems, but they're not turning them on and off. Instead, they're deciding which of the stems gets fed through your choice of the stems effects here. I'll leave them all turned on, and that means I can show you what the effects do, and then we'll experiment with turning a couple of the stems off and showing you what it can do. Echo out. Kind of a spirally deck stop echo out. Standard deck stop. That one's a bit harder to ascertain. It's actually giving you a fraction of a beat's delay when you turn it on. Okay, so these are the effects that are here. And if we turn these on and off, it'll decide what part of the track is affected by our choice of these. So there's a lot more flexibility than when we're in this mode. So let's do that. Let's turn off the vocals so that everything apart from the vocal will be affected by what we choose here. Now we're only affecting the vocal. There we were affecting just the drums and vocal with our choice of effect, and so on. So more flexibility there. Now we also have the roll, which can be used on the stems as well. So the normal roll is this. But if we double tap roll, we get the roll effects. And again, it's the same thing. We choose what we want the roll to be affecting. Just the vocal. Everything apart from the vocal, just the drum. And so on, and our combinations there are up to us and the track we're playing. Furthermore, because you've got this secondary set of functions up here for the pads, you can decide how you want it to work. So you could have permanent stem stuff going on up here. You can see underneath we've got stem roll and stem effects and so on. And then this could be free to use with your hot cues, for instance, and so on. I'm not going to talk you through all the usual Serato stuff here. You can find that in any of our Serato reviews. And if you want to know everything about how to use this controller, as I say, watch out below in the description for our video manual and training tutorial for this unit coming towards the end of 2025 as I record this. So we need to move away from the pads now, because there's more on here for stems than just the pad stuff. And so we need to look at how the stems now work with the EQs. Normally, of course, our EQs give us EQ, they're full kill on this. Low, mid, high. But if you hold down shift and press Q, flashes a couple of times to tell you that it's going to do drums, melody, or vocal. Notice the instrumental light comes on when we've effectively done an instrumental by getting rid of the vocals, and the a cappella light as well, because we've done the same thing. And so it's a nice new way of controlling them. If you're into that, I'm not into that. I prefer just to switch them on and off, but it's there if you need it. Now, another thing that isn't to do with stems, but it's worth pointing out before we move on to look at the hardware effects, is the channel effects, because these are new as well. So with the channel effects, you can turn them on and off here, and that's these knobs here. So currently we've just got the filter, as you would expect from these knobs on pretty much any DJ gear nowadays. But by holding down shift and pressing that button, we can switch to a filter roll. Noise. Flanger. And back to filter. Now, as we said a bit earlier, the original had only Serato's effects. And Serato's effects have got a lot better in recent years, but nonetheless, one of the things that meant was if you plugged something into the back of the unit and you wanted to use your record decks, just literally to play records, or any other source into these inputs here, then you couldn't use Serato's effects. Effectively, this area of the of the controller was useless to you. Not the case anymore. A big change. Now these effects here, this joystick, this screen, it might seem familiar to you, and if it does, that's probably because you've seen any of the other Rane gear that's been released recently, the Performer for instance, or even the Rane mixers such as the Rane 72, because they use a very similar system. So again, I'm not going to go into detail about exactly how it works. That'll be in the full video manual and training tutorial for this unit, or just go and look at any of our reviews of the previous gear that's got hardware effects. More importantly, I just want to show you what they are and get you tuned into what they can do for you. So let's have a look at them. We're just going to use the same source that I've been using before from the software, but just bear in mind that you could have something plugged in around the back and be getting this same effect that I'm about to show you. Right, so let's get started. Echo out. So the paddle works as paddles work. It's momentary down and it locks up. Matrix. Reverb. Scale. Recycler. I'm stopping it off camera so you can hear the recycle effect because it's a kind of echo effect. And then straight echo. All the parameters here are altered with this. You can alter the BPM, you can alter the fraction of the beat that it affects, you can alter all kinds of stuff with it. There's lots and lots of parameters in there to play with on the effects, which I'm not going to go into now. So they are now present and correct on the Rane One MkII. That's the important thing. The Rane hardware effects are there if you want them. So should you get it? If you're a Rane fan, your choice really is between this one and the Rane Performer and also the Rane 4. The Rane Performer gives you motorized jogs, but 4 up faders, so you've got 4 full channels. The Rane 4, you drop the motorized jogs, you keep the 4 channels. So that's going to make it reasonably easy. If you only want 2 channels, but you want the motorized jogs, go for it. If you're not really sold on the Rane brand particularly, but you want a motorized controller that is reasonably sized, again, this one wins because it's smaller than any of the competition. What it loses in that respect is screens and stuff. So if you're going to look at the competition, decide if you want any of the extra features which are packed in, which make some of their controllers bigger and extra channels and so on, just like with the Rane ones I just mentioned. If you're a Rane One MkII fan, but you never bought it, again, same price, all the features, go get it. If you own the Rane One MkII, really, whether you go for this one is going to depend upon whether you are going to be using stems. You've always wanted to use stems and you're finding that the stems controls that you've got on that unit are not to your satisfaction because this has got them all in spades along with some stuff I've never seen before. And so that's going to be reasonably easy. Yes, it's worth the upgrade. Likewise, if you like hardware effects, you like the idea of the hardware effects, you think they sound better than the software effects, I would hold it just there for a second if you haven't checked out the changes in Serato's hardware software effects, because they do sound a lot better than they used to. But look, if you've always wanted hardware effects, they're here on this, and it means that you can use this as a mixer between just 2 turntables, just like I've got turntables over here, to play your records, and you've got all the effects as well there, which you didn't have on the previous one. Again, that kind of makes it a no-brainer because it's a whole new area of functionality. Other than that, it's business as usual. It's a Rane One MkII, not a Rane 2. And so if you're currently happy with the one you've got and you don't need those things, there's no rush to upgrade to it. All that said though, you might be as shallow as I am and think, you know what? I really like that new color. But there's a serious side to this as well, because as I've mentioned, mobile DJs, a lot of it's about look. And if you're a wedding DJ, you've got white setup, you know, you've got white scrims and so on, and you want a white controller to go for it, well, you don't need to go and buy a skin or anything. This is beautiful. It's a lovely looking unit in white, and it's indeed the only color you can get it in. So there you go. These things are tax deductible, right? So hey, go for it. So there we go. There's the Digital DJ Tips look at the Rane One MkII, with apologies for being a little bit late, but hey, we're in Europe. We shut down through August. I've only just managed to get to making this now. I hope it's early enough to help you in your buying decisions. If you've enjoyed this, if you'd like to learn from the world's leading DJ school, which is our primary function on this planet, is to teach people to DJ whatever gear they're using, then come and have a look at our courses over at digitaldjtips.com, and watch out for that free video manual and training tutorial for this unit, which I will be getting done once I've cleared my backlog of gear reviews and student stuff that I need to get through, having just returned to the studio this week. So keep an eye out for that. Meanwhile, from me, Phil, here in the studio, get good, get out there, make the moments, and I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.